Hey, troops, Riffin Geeks Adventures, woohoo! Broadcasting from the Green Couch in the Clintonville section of Columbus, Ohio. So, last 24 hours or so, Netflix has been kind of doing their own little. I mean, it's not exactly a fan fest. They've just been dropping teaser trailers like crazy. Lots of cool stuff. Cowboy Bebop. They dropped the latest. I guess it's the a another version of their opening for the Cowboy Bebop live action series. Looks really freaking cool, yeah. Was it almost a 2 minute teaser for Stranger Things season 4? Gotta wait until next year, but hey, and it's coming out. Also a fight scene between Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, and Dwayne Johnson for Red Notice. Looks really cool. But the big thing I'm talking about, the big thing that I think all of us are still going, Sandman. I think a lot of us are still, like I said, still kind of going. Sandman's one of those comic stories that geeks like me, when we are still kind of speechless when we talk about it, just because there is so much there to talk about. As much as there is a shift in the paradigm for what a comic book story was when Watchmen came out, and when The Dark Knight Returns came out, that paradigm got thrown into a ninja blender attached to warp core and went to warp 20 with Sandman. So when word came out that Netflix was going, yeah, we're gonna do this, we all went, what the hell? And most of you are going, what, Sandman's like a superhero? What? We weren't kidding about paradigm shift. Even in this world where, in this time when a lot of comic book stories, have been brought to life. Whether it's off the beaten path stuff like the Kingsmen, to the obvious superhero related stuff like the MCU, the DC extended universe, or even stuff like The Boys, where it's from the genre. It's just been not just reimagined, but totally messed with. Then there's Sandman. Neil Gaiman and his vast, amazing crew of artists and fellow folks working with him on this thing, took the genre and just kind of went nuts with it. The story on the surface, what it seems like, it's kind of a typical gods and humans story. A bunch of sorcerers, magic users, people who should know better decided to try and capture basically a god. And when you look in that 2 minute that was a minute and a half, almost 2 minute teaser, that's literally verbatim from the comic book, where the dream is captured and cast in this little circle protection thingy. And literally in the book, what happens is like, who do we get? And they're like, and as you're listening to the and as you're listening to what's being recited and what they're talking, they're talking about dream, they're talking about desire. These beings are not necessarily gods the way, like Odin, Zeus. These are more like general concepts that keep and they're not like godlike beings like in the MCU, like the Celestials, the Watcher, so on and so forth. These are universal constructs that keep the universe going, that have become personified. And you're going, yeah, this is some highbrow stuff, okay? Highbrow to the point of kind of giving you a headache. not highbrow, not necessarily highbrow either. Um, and what happens is in the story, it's about what the stories do best is take all the tropes that we have seen over the last almost but not quite century of the medium comic books and screwed with them completely. Neil Gaiman follows in the footsteps of Alan Moore. Alan Moore, that legendary British writer, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, From Hell, and most notably in the U.S., Watchmen. Also well known for calling him a curmudgeon is probably gross. No, it is a gross understatement. When it comes to talking about the industry. Neil Gaiman follows in that tradition of taking all of this stuff and messing with it. For me, Neil Gaiman has always come from a place of rage. I mean, if you look at the stories, there's a very Old Testament crap hits the fan. We will draw a line in the sand, and you go over that line. I will beat you with your limb and with a baseball bat and a freaking chainsaw until you scream for your mama, and then I'll keep beating you with it. Neil Gaiman does see the universe from a dark place where it is a frightening, nightmarish thing. But the beauty of his work has always been that, some life can be very Old Testament and brutal and angry and dark, but not always. And that's been the beauty of his work over an amazing period of time, and in particular in Sandman. Like I said, in Sandman, the gist of the story is that it's about gods and humans interacting. Except that usually, when these interactions come out, it kind of turns into like The Boys, or if you want to go real extreme, call it the Lovecraft's Cthulhu, where you're just praying nothing bad happens. No. The ability to affect, the ability to change things, the ripple effects of your actions go both ways. Just as Dream, Destiny, all these uber powerful beings, they're kind of, we see how they affect humanity and et cetera, et cetera. The fact that door swings both ways. And it's a beautiful story to see. Over the course of the whole story run, it's going to be interesting to see how the series translate Gaiman's stories. They're long arcs. In the first arc here, what happens is that after Dream is captured, when you see in the teaser, he's got the helmet, he's got the little bag of stuff. Does he have the jewel? I don't remember. But in the first arc is him waking up and going, "You did what to me, mofo?" And him getting his stuff back and getting out. Remember what I said, dark side, all right? And then the successive arcs, one of the following arcs is, oh gosh, how does it go? Involves a serial killer and trying to capture it. And then after that, the successive arc is, oh gosh, what was the one after? Oh yeah, he ends up getting the key to hell, and he has to find out, okay, who wants it? Stories are quirky. Stories go all over the place. Remember what I said? Kind of dark, but also something not necessarily dark. And that's the beauty of all this stuff. We talk about how The Boys kind of took comic book stories into a different direction. Watchmen took them in a different direction. In the end, though, they're all still basically the classic tropes: capes and cowls, bad guys, good guys, yada yada yada. The umpteenth thing, besides the concept of gods and humanity, and how the flow of power isn't just one way. The idea of how these stories don't necessarily follow just what are the villains? What are the heroes? And and actually one of the more entertaining, interesting things that's kind of happened over time. Especially when you look at more with a lot of series, seeing how good guys, bad guys, I keep being reminded of a line from True Detective. When Marty and Cole and they're in the car, and Marty goes, "Are we bad men?" And Cole goes, "Yeah, we are. We have to be. We're the ones that keep the really bad men at the door." The idea and leverage of, are we heroes? Not necessarily heroes, but we're not necessarily the villains that you think we are either. Oh, that tradition continues. What is heroism? What's good, evil? It's there is there is a line in the sand, but how these lines are carried out in people, humanity, gods, whatever, gets complicated. Now I know there are a lot of folks that are also going, hey, wait a minute, isn't Lucifer from this? We'll see how that works out. I mean, the issue, and frankly, the honest issue is that as an intellectual property, who owns who and who owns what. So I guess we're going to see how this works out. If memory serves, everything that's happening in the series Lucifer kind of happens after things happen in Sandman. So in the end, there may not be any connection. It's just that Lucifer does whatever, and that's the end of his involvement. There's also the story is in comic book form is connected to the DC superhero universe. A couple characters in here in the DC, amongst the superhero pantheon appear in the book. It doesn't happen a whole lot. I mean, literally 3 times, I think, maybe 4 times. But it's part of that universe in a long-standing peripheral way. Odds are it'll be easy for the writers to just find a way to just kind of find replacements or whatever. So there's that too. So there you go. That's what the deal is with Sandman. I'm I'm one of those fans that, I'll say it, I venerate the book. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. It gets complicated. It gets weird as heck. But it's funny. I haven't really, honestly, I haven't thought about the book in a long time. I mean, it's been a long time since I read it. Yada yada yada. I read it when I was a teenager in high school. Loved it, et cetera, et cetera. Followed it through. Kind of, lost touch with it a little bit, so on and so forth. But it's funny thinking about it now as I've gotten older, and you see a whole lot of new material and everything, and the fun part is that I've always had that feeling, like I mentioned, how Alan Moore is a very Old Testament guy, and Neil not so much. And it's kind of funny seeing it now as I've gotten older and seeing other stories, how much he didn't so much emphasize it, but that's something he wanted to point out. Um, it's like the story Ted Lasso. Yeah, I'm going all over the place with streams, so we crossing all sorts of junk. If you've seen Ted Lasso, the show on Apple, how that easily could have just been the umpteenth. For those who aren't familiar with the story, what it's about is that in American football, our idea of football, American football coach takes a job in Britain to coach a soccer team, or as they would say, football. In the early previews, it looks like a fish out of water thing. You kind of expect Will Ferrell and all these other silly, goofy jokes, which odds are if this were done on the big screen, that's the way to play it up. It would have been fun. And first seeing it, that's what the expectation is. As the season, we go into, this is the second season, I'm sorry. And as the story's progressed, the series is so much more than that. It's not just about pratfalls and making fun of this guy who doesn't know who barely knows anything about soccer. It's about a decent man who wants to try and pass that on. And in some ways, that's kind of what Sandman is. And I mean, like I said, there's definitely a dark side, yada yada yada. But it doesn't necessarily have to be this pew 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 explosion. There are a lot of ways for these stories to go, and like in Ted Lasso, that's the idea that it's not just the pratfalls. It's not just about winning the soccer game. That's the part. That's part of it. But in the end, it's also about learning. It's about nurturing. It's about growing. And in the end, that's really what Sandman is about growing. So yeah. Now, will they have enough time to do that? Because I mean, this is Netflix. After Stranger Things is the exception to the rule of 3 seasons. You're done. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, it looks promising, and hopefully, we'll see. Unfortunately, there is no official release date at this time. All it says is coming soon, and it's like, but hey, so cross your appendages, folks. Okay, so hey, there you go. The umpteen thing to look forward to on Netflix for streaming. So hey, y'all take care. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. May the force be with you. May the odds be in your favor, especially if you're into college football and watching all sorts of insanity going on. And most importantly, be good to each other, okay, peeps. Peace.